Let's dive right into this fascinating explainer because today we're unpacking a modern dilemma that is incredibly common. Seriously, have you ever felt this deep sense of restlessness or emptiness, and your immediate reaction is to try and fix it by changing your habits, buying something new, or just doing whatever it takes to feel better? Well, what if the problem isn't actually your psychology at all? We're going to explore a really groundbreaking framework called the psychoanalysis of affective formation. It makes a bold claim. We often mistake a profound, deep-seated spiritual thirst for mere psychological inadequacy. We're going to break down exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how to fix it.
To really understand this, we're taking an anatomical tour of the human soul. We'll cover 6 parts. 1. O mapa da psique. 2. Persona, consciencia y self. 3. Mergulhando no inconsciente. 4. O fundo humano universal. 5. O eixo espiritual. And finally, 6. Unindo análisis y religión.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, O mapa da psique, an overview of the mind and spirit. This framework brilliantly maps out the entire human model. Now, at the very top, completely outside the boundary of the human mind, is God, represented as truth, goodness, and the ultimate purpose of human existence. The model is crystal clear here. God is not just some creation of the mind or a hidden archetype. He is entirely beyond us. But there's a striking spiritual axis that shoots straight down the middle of the psyche. It pierces through absolutely every single psychological layer. What this shows us is that our spiritual dimension isn't just some tiny locked compartment in the back of our brains. It's an openness to the divine that is potentially present in every single part of who you are.
Moving right along to Section 2, Persona, Conscienza, and Self, the surface layers. At the very top surface, we have the persona. Think of this as your social mask. It's all the roles you play out in the world. Being a parent, a professional, a leader, you name it. And having a persona is totally necessary, right? We need these roles to function in society. But the crucial point here is the danger of believing you are only this mask. You might look completely balanced, perfectly kind, and even deeply religious on the outside. But underneath that mask, you could be secretly dominated by pride, resentment, or just a desperate need for approval. True affective formation means you have to go deeper than just keeping up appearances. Just beneath that mask sits your consciencia, or consciousness. This is the active field of your current thoughts, your perceptions, and the conscious decisions you're making every single day. And notice the directional pull of our consciousness, because it can go a few ways. It can turn outward toward the world, constantly seeking pleasure, power, and adaptation. It can turn obsessively inward, basically trapping you entirely within your own ego. But, and this is key, it can also look upward. It can orient your reason and your will toward truth and goodness, effectively being illuminated by that spiritual axis we just talked about. Deepening our tour a bit further, we hit the very center of the psyche, the self. This acts as the organizing core of your personality. It's the central hub where all the different, and honestly sometimes conflicting, aspects of who you are need to be recognized and integrated. But this framework makes a highly specific and critical distinction here regarding the self. According to this model, the self is not God. This is a massive departure from a lot of modern spiritualities floating around today. Confusing the center of your own psyche with the divine is incredibly dangerous because it leads straight to self-worship. If you trick yourself into thinking your inner self is God, you're going to falsely assume that every hidden desire, every instinct, and every fleeting feeling inside you is automatically holy or good. But as the source material bluntly points out, not everything inside us is good. We harbor disordered desires, fantasies of power, deep fears, and defense mechanisms. Our inner contents don't just need to be blindly accepted, they need to be understood and critically judged. Now we're really descending. Section 3. Mergulhando no inconsciente. Confronting the shadows. We've reached the personal unconscious. Here lies all your personal baggage, your forgotten memories, repressed affections, and all those individual wounds. What's absolutely fascinating is how these hidden wounds completely dictate our actions without us even knowing it. For example, you might firmly believe you're out there righteously defending the truth, when in reality, your unconscious is just trying to avenge some old humiliation. Or you might think you're passionately seeking God, when you're actually just seeking moral superiority over your neighbors. This is exactly where psychological analysis steps in. It helps you see these hidden motivations for what they actually are. Dropping down even further, we arrive at section 4, O Fundo Humano Universal, the foundation of humanity. The source material calls this the Fundo Humano Universal, or universal human background. And what's brilliant here is how this model actually corrects Carl Jung's really famous idea of a collective unconscious. Instead of believing on a mysterious, mystical realm filled with floating archetypes, this framework grounds things back in reality. It proposes something much more concrete, a shared foundation of everyday human struggles and conditions. See, we all share these exact same baseline conditions. Regardless of where or when you were born, you need bonds and protection. You deal with sexuality, work, suffering, and the fear of death. We all fight the exact same ego problems: pride, envy, and a desperate need for control. This perfectly explains why the exact same symbols and stories, like the nurturing mother, the brave hero, the cruel tyrant, or the wise old man, reappear across all different cultures. They aren't magical entities hiding in our brains. They're just expressions of the recurring everyday experiences of human nature. Which brings us to the bedrock, section 5, O Eixo Espiritual, the revelation at the bottom. Down at the very base of our being, we find the abertura espiritual al divino, our spiritual openness. This is the absolute core of the psychoanalysis of affective formation. It proves that human beings don't just seek food, security, or a perfectly balanced psychology. We are fundamentally hardwired to seek meaning, absolute truth, the highest good, and ultimate love. We actually have a built-in capacity to relate to the infinite. But here is the real kicker, the tragedy that plagues so many of us. This spiritual access can easily be ignored, blocked, or deformed. And when that happens, people suffer a profound, unexplainable restlessness. They interpret this massive spiritual thirst as just a psychological lack. So, what do? We frantically try to cram finite things into an infinite void. We chase consumption, success, sex, power, or rigid political ideologies. But because none of those things are infinite, they never, ever satisfy us. So how do we fix this? Section 6. Unbrighting Analysis and Religion, the Path of Integration. This model insists that psychological analysis and true religion are not rivals at all, but they definitely aren't the same thing either. Think of it this way. Analysis clears the emotional roadblocks. It navigates the messy path of the psyche, revealing those hidden wounds, complexes, and defenses that actually make it hard for you to relate to God in the first place. Religion, on the other hand, provides the ultimate destination. It teaches truth, offers prayer, and provides divine grace. The source notes something super profound here. Analysis without spiritual openness just ends up perfecting your ego. But religion without self-knowledge, that just lets you hide your ego underneath a blanket of religious practices. You really need both working together. So it boils down to a gorgeous 4-step path of integration. True integration doesn't mean just passively accepting every dark thought you have. It means 1. Analysis reveals what's hiding in your mind. 2. Your reason steps in and judges those affections in the light of truth. 3. Your will actually chooses a new direction oriented toward love. And 4. Divine grace steps in to help you accomplish what you could never fully pull off on your own. When this happens, that spiritual access transforms everything. Your persona stops being a fake mask and becomes totally sincere. Your consciousness stops serving your ego, and your universal human conflicts, they stop being excuses and start becoming real opportunities for growth. I want to leave you with this to chew on. The next time you feel that deep, unexplainable inner restlessness, ask yourself, are you exhausting yourself running on a treadmill of psychological substitutes, shopping, obsessing over status, or just trying to manage your anxiety away? When what you actually need is to open your spiritual access to the truth. I really encourage you to reflect on what truly drives your actions. Because when we finally stop confusing our thirst for the infinite with a mere psychological problem, we open the door to true, lasting transformation.